Hi, my name is Erica, and I am almost 5 years sober. And I want to tell you about one of the tools that was really helpful for me in finding my way to quitting drinking. And one of those ways is always having a book on hand. I remember when I first started this process and when I really got serious about, can I do this? And actually, ultimately, the time that it stuck for me, I tried many times before this time, went 30 days, went even 6 months one time, and I wasn't able to stick with it. But one of the things I promised myself the last time, which was 5 years ago, that I attempted to stop drinking, which only started with 30 days, by the way, I wasn't committing to any more than that, was I said, as long as I have a book, a sobriety memoir or a book about this on my table when I go to bed at night to read, I can do this. And I don't know where that thought process came from, but for me, having a book and accompanying that with a podcast, going to meetings, all of that really, really helped me. So today I am sharing with you part one of some of the books I read while getting sober that really helped me stick with it and sort of just keep my eye on the prize being like, I can do this, and taking it one day at a time. But it was almost like these books were kind of like my friends. It was like, if I'm they were like a lifeline for me. And I don't know why, and I don't know how it worked, but because it was one of the tools I used, and I want to share as many tools as I can for my viewers here. I want to share some of those books with you today. This will be part one, and I'll do a part two. And the first book that I recommend to anyone that is sober curious or considering going alcohol free is This Naked Mind by Annie Grace. It's This Naked Mind, Control Alcohol, Find Freedom, Discover Happiness, and Change Your Life. I'm not going to talk at length about all of these books, but for this one, I just want to say the reason that I felt that this was such a powerful book for me was because it didn't tell me you need to quit drinking or this is how you quit drinking. It said, you can keep drinking while you read this book. Open your mind and be curious. Just learn some new stuff. And as I was able to do that without the pressure of saying, oh, I'm going to have to quit drinking, like if I read this book, it just allowed me the presence of mind and heart to read without pressure and just learn and be curious. And so if you are in the beginning stages, this is the book I have pointed so many people towards every time I'm on a podcast or in an interview or writing some tips. This is the one. So that's my number one. And then I'm going to go through a few more that I read during this time of, initial sobriety, where I was really kind of hanging on, hoping I could do this and didn't know if I could. And you can add some of these to your list. A lot of these books are available on Amazon. If you go to the used portion of the books, like this is what I do a lot because, you can get them at the library. So totally do that. I am personally not much of a library person. I like to have books. I like to underline them and write in them. And so the good thing about a lot of these sobriety books is that you can get the used versions on Amazon for some of them are as low as $1.97, things like that. You do have to pay shipping, but ultimately you can get a lot of these for $5. So here we go. The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober by Catherine Gray. She's an entertaining writer. Really liked this one. Unwasted, My Lush Sobriety by Sasha Skobelik. Again, a lot of these are memoirs, and I absolutely love a memoir. And something about reading these sobriety memoirs specifically, even though I don't relate to every single story, and some of the folks that write these books had significantly more devastating situations than I did. There's a lot to relate to in any sobriety memoir. It's the kind of thing that you read and you go, oh, me too. Other people felt that. And I really enjoyed the writing in this one. We Are the Luckiest by Laura McCowan. If you are not familiar with Laura, she is the founder of the Luckiest Club Sobriety Support Group, which is the one I joined back in 2020 when I first started really getting serious about this. And I found Laura because she's an amazing writer. And she had a podcast, and this is her first book. And We Are the Luckiest sounds like an interesting, maybe you're like, what does that even mean? But the reason that she titled the book We Are the Luckiest is because as someone who has been through hell and back with alcohol and come out on the other side and experienced the freedom and the revelations and just the goodness that it requires of your soul to probe very deep, She came out on the other side of that and she said, I'm the lucky one, because had I never gotten sober, had I never been in this situation, I never would have put myself in a place where I would have done all this inner work. And so because of that, we are the lucky ones that get through this and get to do this work. And I love that perspective. The subtitle here is The Surprising Magic of a Sober Life. And Laura has a couple other books, or she has one more book and then she's working on another. One of my favorite sobriety memoirs, Blackout, Remembering the Things I Drank to Forget, Sarah Hepola. Sarah is just, I appreciate a person who can write well. And Sarah is an incredible writer. And there's a lot of stuff in here that I found very relatable. Not all of it, but some of it. And it just kind of blesses your soul to read someone else's very raw account of what they went through, and to just feel that vulnerability. And it empowers you to be vulnerable as well. And so I really, really recommend this one. Absolute favorite sobriety memoir of all time is this one, Drinking, A Love Story by Caroline Knapp. Caroline Knapp sadly passed away of lung cancer, I think like 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. She has a couple other books. I've read all of her books. She only has 3 or 4, but the writing in this book is just so superb. Her first book, Appetites, was about her eating disorder, which something that I can relate to, having had an eating disorder, then having had a drinking issue. I related so much to Caroline, and it's such a tragedy that she died so young, and that we are not going to get to see more of her words. But I have probably read this book 5 times, and just always it's in my top 3 that I recommend. One of the most important books that you might read, this is kind of old now, it's called Drink by Ann Dowsett Johnson, but this is, I believe, one of the first books of its kind, where Ann Dowsett Johnson, she had her own drinking problem, and then she wrote this book about sort of like women and drinking and what it means in today's culture. And even though this book is kind of old now, I think much of it still applies. It has a lot of statistics, a lot of case studies, and it just dives into a lot of the reasons behind why women specifically deal with the drinking issue in Western culture today. And in my upcoming book, which is called Freely Sober, Rethinking Alcohol Through the Lens of Faith, I really like sort of took inspiration from this one, because I really wanted it to be full of data and full of sort of updated reasons, specifically why Christian women may be dealing with drinking problems. And so if you want to get sort of the lay of the land on what happened and why did women start having this problem, I really recommend this one. And then before we go to part 2, I'm going to tell you about this book. It's called Leaving Cloud 9, The True Story of a Life Resurrected from the Ashes of Poverty, Trauma, and Mental Illness. This is my first book that I wrote, that ultimately the reason I include this is because this is what led me to do the work that I'm doing today. And I'll tell you quickly why. It's because my husband grew up in a home where there was alcoholism, drug addiction, domestic violence, abuse, neglect, and much of it stemmed from his mom's abuse of alcohol. And even though that's not a situation I grew up in, and even when I was drinking, we didn't have that going on in our family. But writing about his life and his mother's tragic life and seeing what it did to him and his sister led me to reevaluate my own addiction patterns. And having addiction in my family and having addiction in his family, I realized I don't want to pass this on to the next generation. And so in writing this book, I started doing research, and years down the road, it led me to become sober and write the book that I'm working on now. And so if you are curious where all of this started for me and you'd like to read another memoir, this is a great one about the way alcohol ruined the life of one family, but one person, my husband, was able to overcome, and God redeemed him from all of that. And now both of us are free from the chains of this generational legacy. And so I just wanted to put a call out to this one, because there's a lot of inspiration here, and God used it in a really, really amazing way. So if you enjoyed this review, come back for part 2 and subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you subscribe. I'm trying to build it up. And I would love to know if I missed any books that you really like. Leave them in the comments.